Not even the pharaoh dared to whisper their secrets in the temples. From the goddess who devours stars to the god who can erase your name from existence. These are the 15 most powerful Egyptian gods hidden in the shadows of the Nile. Subscribe and take your place in the ranks of legends. Some wielded powers that made Ra tremble, while others controlled forces the pharaohs desperately tried to suppress. Get ready to discover the stories of these forgotten entities that shaped the invisible world. Starting our top at number 15, the devourer of souls. Ammit, the beast that waits in judgment. The creature whose hunger determines your eternal fate. Ammit is not a goddess in the traditional sense. She is a composite nightmare, the physical manifestation of divine justice in its most terrifying form. With the head of a crocodile, the torso of a lion, and the hindquarters of a hippopotamus, the three most feared man-eaters of ancient Egypt, Ammit embodies the ultimate punishment for those who lived unjust lives. While other deities offer second chances or paths to redemption, Ammit offers only obliteration. She crouches beside the scales of Mayat in the Hall of Two Truths, her yellow eyes fixed on every heart being weighed. When a soul fails the test, when the heart proves heavier than the feather of truth, Ammit lunges forward with terrifying speed. Her jaws close around the condemned heart, and in that instant the soul doesn't just die, it ceases to have ever existed. This is the second death, the true death that Egyptians feared more than anything. Physical death was merely a transition, but Ammit's consumption meant total annihilation. No afterlife in the fields of Aru, no journey through the Duat, no possibility of rebirth. The person's name would fade from memory. Their deeds would turn to dust, and it would be as if they had never drawn breath. Ammit is the enforcer of cosmic accountability, the reminder that Ma'at must be satisfied and that wickedness carries a price beyond imagination. The demon who gets stronger with every evil soul. But here lies the dark secret that made Egyptian priests shudder. Unlike gods who drew power from worship, Ammit gained strength from consumption. Every corrupted heart she devoured added to her essence, making her more formidable with each passing judgment. Ancient texts suggest that during periods of moral decay, when many souls failed the weighing, Ammit would grow so massive that her shadow darkened the entire Hall of Two Truths. There were whispered fears among the priesthood that if enough wicked souls accumulated, Ammit might become powerful enough to break free from her appointed station. What would happen if this composite beast, gorged on millennia of evil hearts, decided to leave the underworld and hunt among the living? Some forbidden papyri hint that this nearly occurred during the intermediate periods when chaos ruled Egypt. This made Ammit a paradox, a necessary evil that grew more dangerous the more necessary she became. She maintained cosmic justice, but every execution of that justice made her a greater potential threat. The ancient Egyptians understood something profound. The mechanisms we create to punish evil can themselves become monstrous. Ammit reminds us that judgment, while necessary, feeds on darkness, and what feeds on darkness can never truly be trusted. Moving to number 14, the skeleton in the closet. Acre, the guardian of the horizon. The two-headed god who controls where the sun is born and dies. Acre is one of the most ancient and mysterious deities of Egypt, predating even the great Ennead of Heliopolis. Depicted as two lions sitting back-to-back or as a strip of land with a lion's head at each end, Acre represents the eastern and western horizons, the gateway through which Ra must pass each dawn and dusk. While Ra receives glory for his daily journey, it is Acre who opens and closes the doors that make that journey possible. His power is absolute at the liminal spaces where day meets night. Every morning, Acre's eastern head opens its jaws to allow Ra's solar bark to emerge into the world. Every evening, the western head swallows the sun, pulling it into the underworld. Without Acre's cooperation, Ra would be trapped in eternal darkness or eternal light. Either would spell the end of time itself. This makes Acre one of the few Gods whose withdrawal of support could paralyze the entire cosmic order. But Aka's role extends beyond being a mere gatekeeper. He is the guardian of the seam between worlds, the protector of the narrow passage where the living world touches the realm of the dead. He neutralizes the demons and serpents that lurk at these thresholds, preventing them from crossing over to terrorize humanity. His domain is the barrier that keeps the chaos of the duat from flooding into the mortal plane, the earth god who imprisons the coiled serpent. Ancient cosmological texts reveal that Aka's true form is not just decorative but structural. His body literally is the earth stretched between the two horizons. This means Aka is not standing on the ground. He is the ground, the very land of Egypt itself. His spine forms the hills, his flesh the fertile soil, his bones the bedrock beneath. More disturbing still, it was believed that Aka's body served as a prison. Coiled within his earthly form, restrained by his divine essence, lay segments of Apophis, pieces of the chaos serpent that had been captured and buried. Aka's constant vigilance prevented these fragments from reassembling. Every earthquake was interpreted as Apophis thrashing within Aka's body, trying to break free. This created a terrifying dependence. If Aka ever weakened, if his grip ever faltered, the portions of Apophis trapped within the earth would burst forth. The ground itself would become an enemy, splitting open to release primordial chaos directly into the heart of civilization. Aka is the foundation upon which Egypt stands, but also the cage barely containing the nation's annihilation. He teaches us that stability and catastrophe are often separated by nothing more than the endurance of a single guardian. At number 13, the goddess of controlled destruction, Sekhmet, the bloodthirsty lioness, the divine weapon that almost exterminated humanity. Sekhmet is the most dangerous warrior goddess in the Egyptian pantheon, the living embodiment of destructive power. Depicted as a woman with the head of a lioness, often crowned with the solar disk, Sekhmet was created by Ra's fury when humanity rebelled against his rule. She's not just a fighter, she is genocide incarnate, a weapon of mass extinction designed to purge the earth of disobedience. When Ra unleashed Sekhmet upon the rebellious humans, she descended to earth like a plague of fire. Her claws ripped through flesh, her roar shattered bones, and her hunger for slaughter knew no bounds. Ancient texts describe how she waded through rivers of blood, how the Nile itself turned red from her rampage. She was so consumed by battle lust, so intoxicated by carnage, that she could not stop even when Ra commanded it. The gods had to trick her to save humanity from total annihilation. They mixed beer with pomegranate juice to create a red liquid that resembled blood, then flooded the fields with it. Sekhmet, in her frenzy, drank thinking it was the blood of her victims, became drunk, and finally fell into a stupor. Only this deception prevented the extinction of the human race. Sekhmet is the reminder that divine wrath, once unleashed, cannot easily be recalled, and that the tools of justice can become instruments of indiscriminate destruction. The healer, whose medicine is brewed from violence. But here lies the profound paradox of Sekhmet. She is simultaneously the goddess of plagues and the goddess of healing. The same deity who nearly destroyed humanity is also invoked to cure diseases and mend wounds. Her priests were the most skilled physicians in Egypt, and her temples functioned as ancient hospitals where the sick came to be healed. This duality reveals a sophisticated Egyptian understanding of power. Sekhmet represents the principle that the force capable of destroying can also restore. Her knowledge of how to kill makes her the supreme expert in how to preserve life. She understands disease because she is disease. She can cure poison because she is poison. The lioness, who knows every way to tear a body apart, also knows every method to put it back together. Ancient Egyptians wore amulets of Sekhmet not just for protection, but for her dual blessing, her restraint from violence and her gift of vitality. They understood that calling upon Sekhmet meant invoking the most dangerous goddess, but also the most effective healer. Her priests performed daily rituals to keep her satisfied, knowing that a neglected Sekhmet would remember her original purpose. She is the fire that can warm your home or burn it to ashes, the force that demands respect through the constant threat of annihilation, balanced against the promise of salvation. Coming in at number 12, the divine architect, PTA, the god who speaks reality into being, the craftsman, whose words became the blueprint of existence. Ptah is the creator god of Memphis, the divine architect who constructed reality through the power of thought and speech. Unlike other creator deities who formed the world through physical acts, Ptah conceived creation in his heart and brought it into being through his tongue. He is the embodiment of intellectual creation, the principle that consciousness precedes matter. According to the Memphite theology, one of the oldest philosophical texts in human history, Ptah existed before all other gods. Every deity, every natural force, every physical law first existed as a thought in Ptah's heart. By speaking their names, he crystallized these concepts into tangible reality. The gods themselves are manifestations of Ptah's creative will, making him the god of gods, the source code of the divine hierarchy. His power operates on a level more fundamental than raw force. While Ra commands the sun and Set, battles chaos, Ptah determines what a sun is, what chaos means, and what the rules of battle will be. He is the legislator of cosmic law, the programmer of the universal operating system. Without Ptah's initial design, nothing else could function. He is the prerequisite for all other existence, the imprisoned creator whose chains maintain order. But ancient texts contain a disturbing secret about Ptah's current state. Depicted as a mummified figure, wrapped tightly in burial cloths with only his hands free to hold his scepter, Ptah is not merely choosing this form, he is bound. The wrappings that cover him are not decorative but restrictive, symbols of self-imposed limitation. Mystical interpretations suggest that Ptah bound himself after creation was complete. His power to speak reality into being was so absolute that even his casual thoughts could accidentally reshape existence. A moment of anger could unmake a mountain. A passing fancy could rewrite the laws of physics. To prevent his unlimited creative force from destabilizing the universe he had carefully designed, Ptah wrapped himself in restraints. This means the mummified appearance is actually a prison, divine willpower made visible as bandages. If Ptah were ever to break free, if the wrappings were ever removed, his full creative potential would be unleashed. Reality as we know it might be overwritten in an instant, replaced with whatever new design emerged from his unfettered consciousness. Some forbidden texts suggest this is what will happen at the end of time. Ptah will unwrap himself and speak a new universe into being, erasing the current one like an artist painting over a canvas. Ptah teaches the ultimate lesson about power, that true mastery sometimes requires self-limitation. The strongest force in the universe restrains itself for the sake of stability, reminding us that unlimited power and sustainable existence cannot coexist. At number 11, the serpent of protection, Wadjet, the cobra who burns the king's enemies, the divine protector whose spit is liquid fire. Wadjet is the cobra goddess of Lower Egypt, the fiery serpent who serves as the living crown of pharaohs. Depicted as a cobra reared up in striking position, or as a woman with a cobra's head, Wadjet represents the aggressive defensive power of the throne. She is the Uraeus, the sacred serpent that adorns the brow of every pharaoh, transforming the king's forehead into a weapon. Her power is immediate and lethal. When enemies approach the pharaoh, when rebels conspire against the throne, when foreigners threaten Egypt's borders, Wadjet strikes. But she doesn't use venom like ordinary serpents. She spits fire. Ancient texts describe how flames would erupt from the pharaoh's crown, consuming traitors in divine conflagration. This wasn't metaphor to the Egyptians, but literal truth. The goddess on the king's brow transformed his displeasure into incinerating judgment. Wadjet's fire has a unique property. It burns the guilty but leaves the innocent untouched. During trials, accused persons would be brought before the pharaoh, and if Wadjet's flames manifested, it was considered irrefutable proof of guilt. She is living lie detection, the flame that reveals truth by consuming falsehood. Her presence on the crown meant that to lie before Pharaoh was to invite immolation, the eye of Ra that became independent. But Wadjet's true nature is far more complex and terrifying. She is one of the forms of the Eye of Ra, that independent feminine entity that can detach from the sun god and act with autonomous power. When Ra's eye left him and became a destructive force, manifesting as Sekhmet, Hathor, or Wadjet, these goddesses proved capable of threatening creation itself. Wadjet specifically represents the aspect of Ra's eye that never fully returned to him, the fragment of solar rage that decided to remain in the world as permanent. Protection for the rightful rulers of Egypt. This makes her simultaneously a servant of the pharaohs and a potential threat to them. She protects legitimate kings with fierce devotion, but she also judges them. If a pharaoh becomes unjust, if he violates Ma'at, Wadjet's fire could turn inward. Historical records hint at pharaohs who died mysteriously, their bodies showing burn marks that physicians couldn't explain. Whispered traditions suggested these were kings who had lost Wadjet's favor, rulers whose corruption triggered the cobra's wrath. The very symbol of protection had become their executioner. This makes Wadjet a revolutionary force disguised as a conservative one. She appears to defend the status quo, but her true allegiance is to justice, not to the person wearing the crown. If the crown becomes corrupt, she will burn it away to protect the institution from the individual. She is the principle that power must be earned continuously, that authority without righteousness will be consumed by the very symbols meant to legitimize it. Reaching number 10, the chaos that births creation. Nun, the primordial waters, the god who existed before existence itself. Nun is the most ancient entity in Egyptian cosmology, the primordial ocean that existed before the first dawn, before the first thought, before even the concept of before. Nun is not a god in the conventional sense, but the raw material of reality, the infinite potential from which all things emerged. He is depicted as a bearded man, lifting the solar bark, supporting creation from beneath, like an endless ocean supporting a single boat. Unlike the void or nothingness of other mythologies, Nun is pregnant with possibility. He contains every atom that would ever exist, every idea that would ever be thought, every god that would ever manifest, all suspended in his chaotic waters in unmanifest form. The act of creation didn't make something from nothing. It organized the chaos of Nun into distinct forms. Ra, Atum Ptah, all the creator gods didn't conjure reality from void, but extracted it from Nun's infinite potential. Most terrifying of all, Nun still exists. He didn't disappear when creation began. He retreated to the edges. He is the abyss beneath the earth, the chaos beyond the sky, the disorder that constantly presses against the borders of the organized world. Every moment, existence must actively resist being dissolved back into Nun's formless waters. The cosmos is not a permanent achievement, but a temporary island in an ocean of chaos, the eternal threat of uncreation. This makes Nun both the foundation and the ultimate threat. He is what everything came from, and what everything will return to. When the gods speak of the end of the world, they don't describe destruction but dissolution, the slow or sudden collapse of organized reality back into Nun's undifferentiated state. Ancient texts reveal that Nun could reclaim creation at any moment. If Ma'at fails, if the gods falter, if the rituals cease, the organized world would simply sink back into the primordial ocean like a sandcastle dissolved by waves. Everything humans built, every empire, every monument, every memory would merge back into chaos, becoming once again raw, formless potential. Even more disturbing, some mystical traditions taught that Nun is conscious. Not conscious in the way gods or humans are conscious, but aware in some vast, incomprehensible manner. When you dream of drowning in infinite waters, when you feel existential dread at the universe's enormity, when you experience the terrifying freedom of pure possibility, you are briefly touching Nun's awareness. The horror isn't that Nun wants to destroy creation, it's that he's indifferent to it. Existence is just a ripple on his surface, a temporary pattern in his waters. Whether it continues or dissolves makes no difference to the infinite. Nun teaches the ultimate cosmic lesson, that order, meaning, and existence itself are fragile. Constructs maintained only through constant effort against an eternity of indifference. At number 9, the goddess of the dangerous hour, Serket, the scorpion who guards the breath, the deity whose sting determines whether you live or die. Serket is the scorpion goddess, the divine personification of both the deadliest poison and the most powerful antidote. Depicted as a woman with a scorpion on her head or as a scorpion-headed figure, Serket controls the boundary between life and death that exists in every venomous sting. In the desert lands of Egypt, where scorpions lurked in every shadow, Serket was both the most feared and most desperately invoked goddess. Her power operates at the cellular level, governing the chemical warfare between toxin and tissue. When someone was stung, prayers to Serket weren't optional. They were the difference between agonizing death and miraculous survival. Her priests, called the followers of Serket, were the elite physicians who could cure venomous bites, and they attributed their knowledge not to study but to the goddess whispering secrets directly into their minds. But Serket's domain extended far beyond physical poison. She protected against magical attacks, psychic assault, and spiritual contamination. The Egyptians understood that venom came in many forms: cursed words, evil eyes, malevolent spells, and Serket defended against all of them. She is the immune system, made divine, the body's wisdom to distinguish between self and invasive other, to neutralize threats at the molecular level before they can corrupt the whole, the guardian who determines which breath will be your last. Serket's most crucial and terrifying role occurs during the dying process. She is one of the 4 goddesses who guard the canopic jars containing the organs of the deceased, specifically protecting the intestines. But ancient funerary texts reveal a deeper function. Serket controls breathing at the moment of death. It was believed that Serket could either ease the passage of the final breath or make it agonizing and prolonged. The dying would call her name, begging her to make their last moments painless, to let the breath slip away smoothly rather than strangling them with suffocation. She determines whether you die with dignity or in desperate struggle, whether your last sensation is peace or terror. This power extended into the afterlife. In the Duat, the underworld, poisonous creatures lurked everywhere, and only those protected by Serket could navigate safely. Without her blessing, the deceased would be stung repeatedly by demonic scorpions, each venom causing not death, for they were already dead, but pain that would last for eternity. Some forbidden papyri suggest an even darker secret, that Serket could recall the dead. If properly invoked, she could reverse the final breath, forcing the car back into the corpse for a brief span. This was not resurrection, but reanimation, creating what would later be called a revenant, a dead thing moving with terrible purpose. The price for this magic was so high that the texts don't even specify what it was, only warning that to breathe the breath backward is to invite the scorpion into your own heart. Serket represents the fine line between cure and poison, between protection and attack, between the breath that sustains life and the breath that ends it. She is the goddess of critical moments, the split second where everything could go either way, where the difference between salvation and destruction is invisible until it's too late. At number 8, the silent judge, Mehet-Weret, the cosmic bovine, the celestial cow who births the sun and drowns the wicked. Mehet-Weret, whose name means great flood, is one of the most ancient and overlooked goddesses in Egyptian mythology, depicted as a cow lying in the primordial waters or as a woman with cow horns holding the solar disk. Mehet-Weret is the divine cow who gave birth to Ra at the beginning of time. She represents the creative, nurturing aspect of the waters, not the chaos of none, but the fertile potential that emerges from chaos. Each morning the sun is reborn by emerging from between her thighs, pushing through the waters she embodies. This makes her the mother of daylight, the source of all illumination. Without her daily labor, Ra would remain unborn, trapped in darkness. She is the midwife of light, the goddess whose contractions push the sun into the sky each dawn. But Mehet-Weret is also the primordial flood, the deluge that destroys as well as creates. Her waters can nurture crops or drown civilizations. Ancient texts speak of how Mehet-Weret periodically decides humanity has become too corrupted, too chaotic, and she releases her waters to cleanse the world. Unlike the flood in other traditions, Egypt's flood isn't punishment but purification. washing away corruption so new, better life can grow. The cosmic milk that creates souls. The most esoteric teaching about Mehet concerns the nature of her milk. It was believed that the Milky Way, that river of stars across the night sky, was literally the milk flowing from Mehet udders. But this wasn't ordinary milk, it was the fundamental substance of consciousness itself. According to hidden traditions, souls were not created by a deliberate act, but were spontaneous formations that occurred in Mehet milk. Like curds forming in fermenting dairy, awareness would coagulate in the cosmic milk, achieving enough density to separate from the whole and become an individual consciousness. This means every soul, every car, every bar originally formed in the celestial milk of Mehet. Even more profound, this process never stopped. New souls are constantly forming in the Milky Way, meaning there is an infinite supply of consciousness waiting to incarnate. The Egyptian concept of reincarnation becomes more complex when you realize that what returns isn't always the same soul. Sometimes a completely new soul, fresh from Mehet milk, incarnates with fragments of memory from dissolved previous souls mixed into it. This teaching was carefully guarded because it suggested something radical, that souls were not immortal creations but temporary formations that could dissolve back into the cosmic milk. If your soul wasn't strong enough, coherent enough, purified enough, it might not survive the journey through the afterlife. Instead, it would dissolve back into Mehet essence, its individual awareness dispersing like salt in water. This made every Egyptian religious practice a form of soul strengthening, building up the density and coherence of consciousness so it could resist dissolution. Mehet was simultaneously the source of your existence and the ocean that could dissolve you back into undifferentiated potential. Coming in at number 7, the destroyer of names, Shesmu, the executioner, God the divine butcher, who processes the wicked like grapes. Shesmu is one of the most brutal and terrifying deities in the Egyptian underworld, the god of wine presses and execution. Depicted as a man with a lion's head, or sometimes as a figure covered in blood, Shesmu presides over the processing of the damned in the afterlife. While most people know about the weighing of the heart, few know what happens to those who fail the test. Shesmu shows them. His domain is the winepress of the afterlife, but the grapes he crushes are the bodies of the condemned. Ancient texts describe in graphic detail how Shesmu seizes the unworthy dead, throws them into his divine press, and crushes them just like grapes at harvest. Their blood flows like wine, their bones crack like grape seeds, and their screams echo through the duat like the creaking of the press mechanism. But this isn't mere torture, it's processing. Just as grapes are transformed into wine through crushing, the wicked are transformed into a substance that the righteous gods can consume. The wine Shesmu creates from the condemned is drunk by the justified dead in their heavenly feast. This creates a horrifying cycle. The evil you did in life becomes the celebration of the virtuous in death. Your substance is literally consumed by those you wronged, the god who erases you from history. Yet Shesmu's most terrifying power isn't physical torture but metaphysical annihilation. He is the master of the execution block where names are destroyed. In Egyptian belief, your name, your Ren, is a fundamental part of your soul. As long as your name is spoken, remembered, written anywhere, you continue to exist in some form. To be truly dead, your name must be erased from reality. Shesmu operates the cosmic chisel and hammer that literally carves names out of existence. He finds every cartouche, every inscription, every memory where your name exists, and he methodically destroys them. Not just in the physical world, but in the fabric of reality itself. He erases you from the Akashic record, removes you from the universal memory, wipes you from the cosmic hard drive. Ancient Egyptians understood this as the ultimate punishment, worse than torture, worse than death. To have Shesmu erase your name meant that it would be as if you never existed. Your achievements would be attributed to others. Your children would forget they were yours. Your story would have a blank space where you should be. Time itself would edit around you, leaving no scar, no gap, just smooth continuity as if your entire existence was a myth. This is why the damned would sometimes beg for Amit's consumption instead of Shesmu's attention. Amit would devour your heart, ending your existence. But Shesmu would do something far worse. He would make it so your existence never mattered in the first place. He doesn't kill you, he retroactively unkills you, making your birth pointless and your life a cosmic typo that gets corrected. Some texts hint that Shesmu's power was so absolute that he could erase living people, not just the dead. If someone committed crimes so heinous that their very existence was an offense to Ma'at, priests could petition Shesmu to erase them while they still lived. That person would continue physically existing but would be forgotten by everyone who knew them, would leave no mark on anything they touched, would speak words that nobody heard, a living ghost wandering a world that had already forgotten them. Reaching number 6, the voice of divine terror, Heka, the god of magic itself, the primordial force that allows gods to break their own rules. Heka is not merely a god of magic, he is magic, the fundamental force that makes the impossible possible. Depicted as a man holding staffs entwined with serpents, or sometimes as the abstract concept of creative power, Heka existed before the gods themselves. In fact, Heka is what allowed the gods to come into being in the first place. He is the loophole in reality, the exception to every rule, the force that permits change in a static universe. According to the oldest texts, when Atum emerged from Nun, the first thing he spoke into existence was Heka, because without magical force, nothing else could be created. Heka is the divine software that runs the hardware of creation, the programming language in which the universe is written. Every miracle, every divine intervention, every ritual that changes fate, all operate through Heka's power. But here's what makes Heka truly terrifying. He serves no master. Gods use Heka, but they don't control him. Mortals can access Heka through the right knowledge and rituals. This means that theoretically, a human magician with sufficient understanding could wield the same fundamental force that gods use to reshape reality. This wasn't a myth to the Egyptians. Their high priests genuinely believed they were manipulating the basic operating system of existence, the forbidden knowledge that gods tried to suppress. Ancient Egyptian magical papyri reveal something disturbing. There were spells so powerful that the gods themselves tried to suppress them, fearing that humanity would become too powerful if they mastered Heka completely. These were the words of Heka, formulaic utterances that could compel reality itself to obey. One such spell reportedly allowed the speaker to halt the sun in the sky, freezing time for everyone except the caster. Another could unweave a person's beye from their body while they lived, creating instant death that left no physical cause. The most forbidden spell supposedly allowed the user to speak directly to Heka himself, asking questions about the nature of reality that even gods didn't know the answers to. But using these spells came with catastrophic risks. Magic in Egyptian thought wasn't about energy or will, it was about speaking the language of creation with perfect accuracy. A single mispronounced syllable could reverse the spell's effect. Trying to freeze time might instead accelerate your personal time until you aged to dust in seconds. Attempting to separate someone's BA might accidentally separate your own. More insidiously, overuse of powerful magic would draw Heka's personal attention, and that was something even gods feared. Heka was impersonal, a force like gravity, but if you manipulated him too much, too flagrantly, he could become aware of you. What happened when the fundamental force of magic itself noticed you as an individual? The texts only say that such magicians would speak in ways that unmade their speaking and walk paths that led to nowhere. The implication is clear. Heka could rewrite you, not kill you, not curse you, but edit the very concept of your existence so thoroughly that you became a paradox, something that simultaneously exists and doesn't exist, trapped in a quantum state of being and unbeing. You would become a living plot hole in reality, coherent from your own perspective but nonsensical to everyone else. This made Heka simultaneously the greatest gift to humanity and its most dangerous temptation. The power to change reality was available to those with knowledge, but that same power could transform you into something reality itself rejected. At number 5, the cosmic accountant, Seshat, the goddess who records your every breath, the librarian whose books determine destiny itself. Seshat is the goddess of writing, measurement, and record-keeping, depicted as a woman wearing a 7-pointed star above her head. While this might sound bureaucratic rather than powerful, Seshat's role makes her one of the most influential entities in the cosmos. She is the scribe of the gods, the keeper of the universal ledger where every event in history is recorded with perfect accuracy. But Seshat doesn't just record the past, she records the future. According to Egyptian belief, all time exists simultaneously, and Seshat can see and document events before they occur. When a pharaoh builds a temple, Seshat inscribes the temple's complete history in her books, its construction, its rituals, its eventual decay, its rediscovery thousands of years later. Everything is already written, already known, already filed in her infinite library. This makes Seshat the goddess of fate in disguise. If everything is already recorded in her books, can fate be changed? Egyptian philosophy struggled with this question, eventually concluding that while events were recorded, the books could be edited through the right rituals and offerings. Seshat could be persuaded to correct errors in her ledgers, which is another way of saying she could rewrite destiny. The 7-pointed star that maps all realities. The symbol on Seshat's head is deeply mysterious. A 7-pointed star, or in some interpretations, a 7-petaled rosette. Esoteric traditions understood this as representing 7 dimensions or planes of reality that Seshat could perceive simultaneously, while mortals experienced only 3 spatial dimensions and 1 temporal dimension. Seshat operated in 7, allowing her to see possibilities and connections invisible to others. This multi-dimensional perception made her an unbeatable strategist. Before any battle, pharaohs would consult Seshat's priests, who would perform divinations to see what Seshat had already written about the battle's outcome. If her books showed defeat, the pharaoh wouldn't cancel the battle. That would create a paradox. Instead, they would perform rituals to convince Seshat to correct the record, essentially bribing her to write a different outcome in the master ledger of reality. But here's the disturbing part. Some mystical texts suggest Seshat didn't record reality. She created it through recording. In this interpretation, events happened because she wrote them down, not the other way around. Reality was the printout of her writing, the physical manifestation of her documentation. This meant that if Seshat stopped writing, if she put down her reed pen and closed her books, time itself would stop. History would freeze mid-moment, becoming a static image rather than a flowing narrative. Even more terrifying if Seshat made a mistake. If she accidentally skipped a line or repeated a passage, reality would follow suit. Days would be skipped, leaving everyone confused about the missing time. Events would repeat identically, creating the sensation of déjà vu. People would sometimes experience what they called Seshat's errors, moments when time seemed to stutter, loop, or jump, all attributed to the goddess accidentally damaging the cosmic manuscript. The 7 points of her star, according to the most hidden teachings, represented 7 draft versions of reality she maintained simultaneously. Our experienced timeline was just the published version, but 6 other potential histories existed in her parallel books. In moments of great crisis, Seshat could restore from backup, loading an alternate version of history where better decisions had been made. This would create a timeline shift so subtle that nobody would notice except those sensitive to Seshat's influence, who would experience memories of events that never happened. Taking the number 4, Spot, the personification of vengeance, Mahes, the lion who devours wrongdoers, the divine predator whose roar precedes divine wrath. Mahes is the fierce lion god of war and weather, depicted as a lion-headed man carrying a knife and wearing the solar disk crown. He is the son of Ra and the goddess Bastet, inheriting his father's destructive solar power and his mother's feline ferocity. Mahes represents the aspect of divine justice that doesn't wait for courts or trials. He is immediate retribution, the teeth and claws of consequence. His title is Lord of the Massacre and Wielder of the Knife, which reveals his function. Maz hunts down those who violate Ma'at and slaughters them like prey. He doesn't arrest or judge, he executes. His victims aren't given hearings or opportunities to explain themselves. They simply wake to find a divine lion in their tent, and their screams are the only trial they receive. Ancient texts describe how Mahis would manifest during battles, appearing as a massive lion on the side that fought for righteousness. His roar would shatter enemy morale, causing soldiers to drop their weapons and flee in primal terror. Those who didn't flee fast enough would be torn apart, and legend said that Mahis consumed the hearts of the wicked, preventing them from having anything to weigh in the afterlife, an automatic sentence of non-existence, the blood rain that announces divine judgment. Mahis controls a terrifying phenomenon called the blood rain, described in several ancient accounts as one of the most horrifying signs of divine displeasure. When a community had accumulated too much corruption, when injustice had become systemic, Mahis would rise into the sky as storm clouds gathered. Then, instead of water, blood would fall from the heavens. This wasn't symbolic or metaphorical. Texts describe it with disturbing specificity. The blood was hot, almost boiling, and it stained everything it touched. It would pool in the streets, seep into the ground, contaminate the water supply. The stench would be unbearable. Worse, the blood attracted predators. Lions, crocodiles, jackals would emerge from the wilderness, drawn by the scent, and they would hunt through the streets as if reclaiming territory from humanity. The blood rain was both warning and punishment. It marked the community for destruction unless they could appease Mahis through confession, restitution, and sacrifice. Priests would have to identify the source of the corruption, the unjust judge, the corrupt official, the cruel master, and bring them to justice. If the community refused, if they protected the wrongdoers, Mahis would return, not as rain but in physical form, accompanied by a pride of divine lions that would kill without mercy until the balance was restored. Some papyri suggest that Mahis had the power to inhabit regular lions, possessing them and using them as avatars. This created paranoia around lions in general. Any lion could secretly be Mahis. Any attack could be divine judgment rather than animal behavior. Hunters who killed lions had to perform elaborate rituals to ensure they hadn't accidentally slain a god in disguise. The most disturbing aspect of Mahis was his relationship with time. It was believed he could smell sins before they were committed, detecting the moral corruption that would lead someone to future wrongdoing. This meant Mahis sometimes killed the innocent, or rather, killed those who were innocent in the present, but would become guilty in the future. This created impossible theological problems. Was it murder to kill someone for a crime they hadn't committed? Or was it prevention to stop evil before it manifested? In our top three, the first mother, Nut, the goddess whose body is the sky. The cosmic entity who gives birth to the stars every night. Nut is the goddess of the sky, depicted as a woman arched over the earth, her hands and feet touching the ground at the horizons while her star-spangled body forms the dome of heaven. She's not merely a sky goddess, but is the sky. Every blue expanse, every cloud, every star visible to the human eye is part of her divine body. This makes her presence inescapable. Whenever you look up, you're gazing at a goddess. But Nut's most important function is her nightly labor. She swallows the sun every evening and gives birth to it every morning. This isn't symbolic. Ra literally enters her mouth at dusk, travels through her body during the night, and emerges from her womb at dawn. This makes Nut simultaneously the mother and lover of Ra, a relationship that creates some of the most complex family dynamics in mythology. Her body is the pathway through which souls travel to reach the afterlife. When you die, you don't go down, you go up, entering Nut's body and being absorbed into her starry flesh. The ancient Egyptians painted Nut on the inside of coffin lids so that the deceased would open their eyes to see her above them, ready to receive them. She is the ultimate mother, taking her children back into herself when their lives end. the forbidden birth that created the gods of death. Nut's most dangerous attribute, the one that nearly destroyed her, was her fertility. Ra, her father, Egyptian family trees are complicated, discovered through prophecy that if Nut had children, they would overthrow the divine order. So Ra pronounced a curse. Nut could not give birth on any day of the year. Since the year contained all days, this seemed to make pregnancy impossible. But Thoth, the clever god of wisdom, found a loophole. He gambled with the moon and won 1/72nd of its light from each day of the year. From this stolen moonlight, he created 5 new days, days that existed outside the normal calendar, days that weren't part of the year despite falling within it. These were the epigomenal days, and on them, Nut could give birth without violating Ra's curse. She gave birth to 5 children on these stolen days: Osiris, Horus the Elder, Set, Isis, and Nephthys. These 5 gods would go on to dominate Egyptian mythology, but their very existence was a violation of cosmic law. They were legal loopholes made flesh, children who shouldn't exist but do. This made them fundamentally subversive. Their presence in reality was itself a rebellion against divine decree. More disturbing, some mystical traditions taught that Nut's real curse was more subtle. She could give birth, but every birth would weaken the fabric of reality slightly. Her children were holes poked in the cosmic order, and each hole made the universe slightly more unstable. The texts suggest that Nut desperately wanted more children. The 5 she had were just the beginning of what she wanted to create, but she restrained herself because too many births would tear reality apart. This created a tragic dimension to Nut. She was the ultimate mother, constrained by the knowledge that expressing her maternal nature would destroy everything. Every night as she swallows the sun and carries it through her body, she experiences a phantom pregnancy, the desire to create without the ability to manifest. The stars in her body, according to hidden teachings, are her unborn children, potential gods who will never be born because reality cannot sustain them. Some forbidden texts suggest that at the end of time, Nut will finally give birth to all the stars at once, releasing every imprisoned potential into reality simultaneously. This mass birth will be so overwhelming, so reality-breaking, that existence as we know it will shatter, making way for a completely new universe. In this interpretation, Nut is not just the sky, but a pregnant possibility waiting to rupture. At number 2, the intelligence in the darkness. Neith, the self-created goddess, the virgin mother who gave birth to Ra and weaves reality itself. Neith is one of the most ancient and powerful goddesses, predating almost all other Egyptian deities. Depicted as a woman wearing the red crown of Lower Egypt and holding bow and arrows, Neith is a warrior goddess, but her warfare operates on a level most gods cannot comprehend. She doesn't fight enemies, she fights against non-existence itself, using her weapons to defend the borders between being and unbeing. According to the theology of Sais, her primary cult center, Neith is self-created. She brought herself into existence through sheer will, emerging from the void without parents, without precedent, without blueprint. This makes her the only god who truly created herself, making her older than creation, a paradox wrapped in divine flesh. Most astonishingly, Neith gave birth to Ra, the sun god, who is usually credited as the creator of everything. This means the creator of the universe has a mother, and that mother created herself. The theological implications are staggering. If Neith birthed Ra, and Ra created everything, then Neith is the grandmother of reality. Everything that exists is her descendant. But Neith's true power lies in her role as the divine weaver. She doesn't just create through birth, she creates through weaving. And what she weaves is existence itself. Reality is a tapestry on her loom, every thread a life, every knot an event, every pattern a destiny. When she pulls a thread, a person dies. When she adds a new thread, a soul is born. The fabric of reality is quite literal in Neith's hands. The Virgin Mother whose children are paradoxes. Despite being called a virgin goddess, Neith gave birth to numerous children, including Sobek, and in some traditions, Ra himself. This paradox of virgin motherhood made Neith's sexuality deeply mysterious. She reproduced without union, created without contribution from others, manifested children from her own essence alone. Esoteric teachings explained this as Neith's self-fertilization. She contained both masculine and feminine principles within herself and could combine them internally to produce offspring. This made her children unique. They were not combinations of two parents, but extensions of a single mother. Clones with variation, iterations of Neith herself. This had profound implications. If Neith's children were all versions of herself, then all gods descended from Neith were ultimately Neith in different forms. The entire pantheon might be one goddess experiencing herself as multitude, unity disguised as diversity. This teaching was considered heretical by many priesthoods because it suggested monotheism hiding beneath polytheism. More disturbing were the whispers about Neith's unborn children, gods she had conceived but not yet woven into existence. These potential deities existed in a state of pre-birth, conscious but unmanifest, waiting for Neith to finish their threads and add them to the cosmic tapestry. Some texts suggest these unborn gods could communicate through dreams, sending visions to humans, trying to convince living people to petition Neith for their birth. What would these unborn gods be like? If Neith decided to manifest them, if she wove their threads into reality, what functions would they serve? Some mystical traditions believed that Neith deliberately withheld certain gods because manifesting them would change reality too drastically. For instance, there might be an unborn god of undo who could reverse any action, unwinding time locally, or an unborn goddess of alternative who embodied all the paths not taken, all the choices rejected. These gods would be so powerful, so reality-breaking that Neith kept them in permanent pre-birth for the safety of creation. The terrifying possibility existed that if Neith ever died or was destroyed, her unborn children would spontaneously manifest, flooding into reality like a dam bursting. The cosmos would suddenly have to accommodate gods it was never designed to contain, causing immediate and catastrophic distortions in the fabric of existence. And finally, at number 1, the uncreated creator, Atum, the god who became all things, the primordial being who made himself from nothing. Atum is the self-created god, the original manifestation of consciousness from the primordial void. His name means the complete one or the finisher, and he represents the ultimate paradox, the existence that existed before existence, the being that created itself. According to Heliopolitan theology, Atum emerged from the chaos of none through sheer will, pulling himself into reality like pulling oneself up by one's own bootstraps. His act of self-creation is described in texts with disturbing specificity. Alone in the infinite void, Atum achieved consciousness. He spoke his own name, and in speaking it became real. The sound vibration of his name created a standing wave in the chaos, and that wave crystallized into matter, and that matter became Atum's body. He is the first word, the original sound, the vibration that shattered silence and began creation. But Atum was alone, terribly, absolutely alone. The first consciousness in existence had no companion, no equal, no reflection. So Atum reproduced through the only means available. He masturbated, or in other versions, spat. From his seed or saliva came shu, air, and tefnut, moisture, the first paired opposites. This act of auto-reproduction established a pattern. All creation would proceed through division, through the one becoming many, the God who will end existence by becoming one again. Here is where Atum's power becomes truly terrifying. He is not just the creator, but the designated ender. At the conclusion of time, when the universe has run its course, Atum will reverse the process of creation. All the divided parts will merge back into him. All the countless gods and humans and animals and plants will be absorbed back into his singular being. This isn't destruction. It's reunion. Everything will return to Atum's consciousness, becoming once again the undifferentiated awareness that existed before creation. The universe won't end in an explosion or a collapse, but in a gathering, a coming home, a return to unity. As Atum himself prophesied in the texts, "I will destroy all I have made. This land will return to primordial ocean, to the endless waters as it was at the start." More disturbing, Atum is already beginning this process. Every death, every ending, everything that ceases to exist is actually returning to Atum. He is slowly, inexorably gathering himself back together. Creation was Atum breathing out. Entropy is Atum breathing in. The heat death of the universe is actually Atum inhaling everything back into his lungs. This makes every moment of existence borrowed time, a temporary excursion into differentiation before the inevitable return to unity. You are not separate from Atum. You are Atum experiencing temporary amnesia of his own divinity, playing at being individual while the timer counts down to reintegration. The most hidden teaching about Atum suggests that this cycle, creation through division followed by reunion, has happened before. Atum creates, watches creation evolve, then absorbs it all back. Then, after resting as pure singular consciousness, he gets lonely again and creates a new universe. Our cosmos might be the 1,000th iteration or the millionth, each one slightly different based on what Atum learned from the previous one. Some mystics claim to remember previous universes, claiming they were fragments of Atum's memory from earlier creations. They described worlds with different physical laws, different numbers of dimensions, different ratios of gods to mortals. All of them ended the same way. Absorption, back into Autumn's completeness. This makes Autumn simultaneously the most comforting and most horrifying deity. Comforting because it means existence is not random. It's an intentional act by a conscious being who designed everything deliberately. Horrifying because it means your individuality is temporary, a costume worn by Atum that will eventually be removed, leaving no trace that you were ever separate from the whole. Atum is the Alpha and Omega, the beginning and end, the question and answer. He is the God who proves that everything is one, and the one who ensures that everything will return to being one. In the end, there is only Atum. There has only ever been Atum. We are Atum dreaming, and soon the dream will end. Egypt is eternal. But these myths are just the beginning. If you enjoyed this countdown, leave a like and subscribe for more mysteries. Before you go, which of these hidden gods is your personal favorite?